Good evening and welcome to Bits and Pieces. This is our cricket podcast, and we would like to welcome you to the second season of our Bits and Pieces cricket podcast. We hope we hope that you'll stay with us for the next 60 minutes or so as we delve into issues related to the great, wonderful, exciting game of cricket. With me I have Vicky, Basil, and Brian, and they're each going to introduce themselves to you, say what their connection to cricket is. Vicky, I'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Vicky Kilawan. I'm the president of Liberty Sports Club.
Okay, Basil.
I'm Basil Butcher Jr. Well, the junior is because my dad was a West Indies player. My connection to cricket is through my father. Since I always tell people since I was in my mother's womb, ardent cricket fan. My dad, I often went with him when he started coaching while he was staying Bristol playing. I was the little one he took along with him, and I always had a keen interest. I played, and I'm now a strength and conditioning coach. I work with all sports, including cricket. And right now, I actually just finished. I'm going to be doing an online program for cricketers to enhance their performance. So that's something maybe another time I can talk about. Thanks.
Okay, great. Brian.
Good evening. Thanks again for having me on season 2. And Nancy, good to see you. Vicky, good to meet you. Basil, it is a beautiful night. My name is Brian Arcane. I am an umpire based out of New York City, but working in professional T20 and regional cricket around the USA through USA Cricket. Happy Friday.
All right. Thank you all. Okay. Please, folks, remember to like, share the broadcast. If you love the game or if you're not familiar with the game, either way, right? I'm sure this 60 minutes or so is going to be of interest to you. So please share the broadcast, tell a friend, and we'll be back with you in just a few seconds. All right. Today, the first thing we want to tackle is the hook shot. All right. Now, Vicky, as someone who played the game, someone who's managing the thing now, when you hear the hook shot, what do you see? What comes to mind?
Staying on the back foot for me, man. A bouncer, a ball coming up there, getting ready to hit it as hard as you can. In the old days, they would tell you to roll your wrists. Nowadays, the batsman and just want to hit a six.
Basil, what comes to mind when you hear of the hook shot, and were you able to see your dad execute a hook shot?
I may have seen him, but can't remember. But I seen it on video because when he played, I was very young. When he played for the West Indies, I was very young. So a lot of his career, I really didn't know much. But the hook shot is the first thing comes to mind is aggression on both the fast bowler or the bowler as well as the batsman. The hook is like a counter attack to the aggression of the fast bowler. That's what I see that. That's like the contest is taken up to the heights between the fast bowler and batsman.
Right. Okay, Brian, and from your position as an umpire, what in terms of the game and looking at the game, how do you see the hook shot?
Usually when I hear players talking about hook shots, they're telling me about times they got out playing one. Because especially on New York wickets, playing a hook shot, playing a competent hook shot is quite difficult. The ball often stays low. The ball might come a bit slow at you. On New York wickets, you get a lot of top edges, get a lot of leading edges from a hook shot. So yeah, most of the time when I hear about a hook shot, it's players complaining how they keep getting out to them, sort of like the Australians back in the day.
I think the hook shot is also very West Indian. If you watch cricket back in the days, you would notice other batsmen from other countries would duck under the bouncing balls. But
Right,
our guys
right.
would always be hitting it, and they always say calypso cricket.
We used to call them happy hookers.
Well, I'm glad you said that because we grabbed Richie Richardson doing a few hooks from YouTube. So here's Richie Richardson, West Indies own.
He's had a go at that one. There are two men down there, but it's disappearing over the top again for yet another six. Boys hit that one square and it's going for four. Short deliveries on this wicket or another.
And you can tell with a face like that. It's gone a long way. It's over the top. That's six. He's not afraid to drop it short. Richie's not afraid to get inside it either. Magnificent shot. What a play there by Richie. Used the right arm, uppercut, hit it right in the screws. Must have travelled at least 75 yards. As I said, he hit one out of the ground last time. That's...
You get a lot of coaches who say don't play the hook shot because it's a dangerous shot to play and it's a hard shot to play. That's rubbish. Take no notice of it. If my philosophy is that if you're going to reach first class or international cricket, then I think you've got to be able to play every shot in the book, and that includes the hook shot and the pull shot, because the higher up you go, the more short pitch stuff you'll go. So my philosophy was, as a hooker, that it's not just the runs that you get from the shot, it's the psychological damage that you can also inflict on the opposition. As a captain, I always like to have at least one, preferably two, guys in the top order who would take on the fast bowlers and play the hook shot.
Vicky, your take on the great Ian Chappell's words?
Yes, I agree. Cricket, you need aggression, and if the ball is there, you have to play the strokes as long as you know. The only hesitation I have is with Ramdhari Sarwan. As a cricket fan, we know that was his downfall. He got out so many times with that shot. But I would say if the trap is there, do not go for it. But every other time, I would say try to put pressure on the bowling. So if the ball is there, go for it.
Right. But Basil, in your capacity as someone dealing with the body and health and fitness and physio, how would you prepare a batsman in terms of his mind and body to play a shot that is typically an aggressive shot and one which calls for a lot of eye body coordination? And how would you approach that?
Well, I wear also the hat as a cricket coach because I'm a certified level 3 cricket coach. So one of the things that's a very good question, because in this era of the helmets and so on, unlike the pre-helmets era, where batters really kept their eyes on the ball, got into positions, because when you would play a hook shot in the pre-helmet eras, you literally could be killed if you missed the ball, or serious damage could happen. So you would find, and in those eras also, I would want to just say, you saw more short bowling because the rules got changed and you only could bowl X number of bumpers and over. But the first thing I wanted the batter to do is, one of the things we would use is the flannel ball, and to hit the flannel ball so they could learn to get into the position without having the fear of getting hit. So once they develop the technique of getting inside the ball, so they can play the hook shot, then you would start introducing the hard ball, and then you have to talk to them about how, making sure you understand what situations you want to play that shot. There are times you just got to let it go, because it's a very high risk shot, because if the ball is above your shoulder, it's very hard for you to control. So you have to make sure that you can be in control so that you can not get out. And as Vicky said earlier, Sarwan was an example. He loved to hook, but he often got out hooking. and there are other guys that West Indian cricketers over the years that you see the captain put a backward square and a long leg, and the bowler bowl the bumper, and it's right straight in the guy's hand. Right now, you give that advantage to the team. So those are the things I would want them to to prepare them, because just the final thing, one thing batters have to be able, they got to have that intestinal fortitude, because short bowling, beyond the technique and all of that, there is that fear factor, and you have to be able to have the intestinal fortitude that I'm gonna take this guy on, rather than shy away or take your eyes off the ball and get hit or whatever. So I think very important is to build the technique up from first getting your technique and then understanding the situations to play the shot.
Okay. Now, Brian, no, Brian. Basil, you used a term just now that I think might, fly over the head of the novice listener, the person who's not too familiar with cricket. So if you could break it down, when you say play inside the ball, just kind of tell us.
Oh, so if say the ball is coming straight to you, right? You want to get here so you're inside the line of the ball so you can extend your arms and play. You don't want to be the ball coming straight at your body. You really can't get your arms. And if you miss, it's going to hit something also. So you want to get inside, because the hook shot is usually you're hitting the ball behind you there, right? So you want to get inside the line. Or the other thing is to be able to sway out of the way of the ball, right? So it's coming at you. To play the shot, you want to get inside. But if you want to leave, one of the best ways is to sway out of the way. So that way you're teaching yourself to keep your eyes on the ball even as it passes you. And I can tell you something, as a bowler sees a batter doing that, it sends a message to the bowler too, that look, this guy is picking up the line and length of the ball, right? So if you come wrong, you're going to get the treatment. But when he see you ducking and evasive in a way that is you're not showing that confidence, that makes the bowler even get and you try to play it and you're not in a good position, that's going to encourage a fast ball even more.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Brian, standing in the position of an umpire, and now, as Ian Chappell would have indicated, it's an aggressive shot, and usually it's an aggressive shot played against aggressive bowling. Now, as an umpire, do you feel that kind of intensity in the atmosphere, whether as the bowler is moving in or as the batsman is preparing a shot? Do you feel a difference in do you see what's happening in their mind as they become more aggressive?
There are certainly times when you can see that a batsman needs to move on and wants to move on, especially in the T20 cricket, sort of at the next level up from New York City club cricket, those sort of franchise tournaments that are popping up around the country. That level up, you tend to get that next level of aggression. There's lots of players visiting up from the West Indies, guys coming in from overseas trying to, maybe make a new life over here, and American players really trying to stamp their place in the game. So there is a lot of aggression out there because everybody's fighting for a spot in this new cricket world, and you can see it when a bowler comes in and bends his back just a little bit more. You know that ball is going to come short. You can hear it, just like on a tennis serve. They might grunt a little bit harder as they come through. You might even hear a word or two passed along between the bowler and the batsman. Maybe they know each other. Maybe they played against each other somewhere else, and there's a history here. And when you think about that kind of aggression, you have to be aware that there are things within the laws and the playing conditions to make sure that doesn't overheat. So as Basil mentioned, especially in T20 cricket these days, you're only allowed to bowl one ball above the shoulder, all right, at any point during the over. So that's something that the umpires use to make sure that it doesn't get out of control, that there's bouncers coming at the batsman's head all the time. But the bowlers are also very good at sort of putting the ball right about here, just below the shoulder, as their aggressive shot. And that can get that can get the batters in trouble, like I said earlier, with top edges and leading edges going out to the men behind square.
Okay, thank you. Basil and Vicky, one of our viewers, Terrence Blackman, is asking who are the best West Indian hookers?
Let Vicky go first.
To be honest, I think Butch would answer this best because I started following cricket in the early 90s,
Okay.
which was the ending period of the West Indian heyday. And in our heyday, we had Fredericks, we had your father, and we had many other great pullers. For me, I think the last great puller was Richie Richardson that I saw.
I would say when I go back to the 60s, Kanai Sobers, you come into the 70s, you have Roy Fredericks. I understand my dad was a decent hooker. I can't really talk much about that. Roy Fredericks, Cali Charan in the 70s, and then the great Sir Isaac Vivian Alexander, one of the premier hookers the game has ever seen. And Richie Richardson. I remember hearing guys talk about Richie Richardson when in Shell Shield, where fast bowlers refused to bowl short because they know he was going to dispatch them. And those are some of the guys I would say were some of the best hookers West Indies has seen.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. We're going to move on now to the hot button issue, the whole issue of fitness. And recently, there have been some issues in West Indies cricket with some of the star player, foremost, Hetmeyer. So we want to tackle that, and we'll be back shortly.
In February, batsman Evan Lewis and Sherman Hetmeyer were omitted from the one-day international squad for the tour to Sri Lanka. Prior, both would have played a recent series against Ireland. However, they both failed to attain the new minimum standard fitness requirements in the recent fitness assessments. 2 weeks later, Hetmeyer passed the test and was selected to the T20 international squad. According to Lara, who's considered to be one of the all-time greats of the game, fitness is a challenge Hetmeyer should work overtime to conquer since he has immense talent. Open quote. People have challenges in different ways, and Hetmeyer obviously is a very talented cricketer, someone who plays all forms of the game for the West Indies. If he is unfit, he has to see it as a personal challenge. Fitness levels are so very important, so if fitness is his problem, I would like to see him face that challenge himself, and he'll be a much better cricketer, end quote. Lara, as he said before, believes the team can learn much from the example of Virat Kohli. Kohli, he said, has worked hard on his fitness, and that, Lara explained, is a perfect lead for Hetmeyer to follow.
Okay, Basil, I'll come to you first because I suspect that the actual definitions may have evolved over time. But when we talk about a fit athlete, regardless of the sport, what are we talking about, Basil?
I think that's a broad word. It's a very broad word, and I think this situation with Hetmeyer, is good. We can have this discussion because each athlete has certain demands they have to meet to be successful in their sport, and to be able to meet those demands, they will need to have certain levels of fitness in various areas, right? One would be strength, power, speed, stamina, and then there are other assets, other keys, like, one of the things, body fat levels are very important, because the research has shown clearly that the leaner an athlete is, the more chances they are to perform better, right? Because you have sports teams today. I can name one example, the Miami Heat. They test, all their players have to maintain a certain level of body fat throughout the season, or they'll be fine. Or if they continue to miss those targets, they'll get cut, right? So some teams have devised different means, standards, so their players can meet, because they understand for them to perform, as we would say, in the proverbial fourth quarter, where most games are won or lost in all sport. That's where you want your players to be able to execute efficiently. And if your levels of fitness are not up to par, those are the times when you're going to make the mistakes in the key areas. And the last thing, a coach, talking from a coach perspective, I hate to want to lose a game because my players do not have optimal fitness levels. I'd rather them make a mistake, if from a cricket perspective, they had the shot, but they just didn't execute well, or they didn't execute a catch or what have you, but not because of lack of fitness.
Okay, thank you. Brian, looking at it from a broader human perspective, now, in the, we continue along with Hetmeyer. One of our viewers called me. I mean, he said, this Hetmeyer thing really irks him, because Hetmeyer performs, right? He still does what basically he has been hired to do. All right. Now, what's your take on a cricketer being able to produce runs, maybe still run on the field, but technically he is unfit? How do you see that conundrum?
I think that Basil said it very well when he said that it's in that fourth quarter that you need them to be still at their best. And I know it's a bit different in cricket. You can go in for just a couple of balls, and then you can go out maybe 12 balls later, having scored 42 runs, and you've really done well for your team. But I think that you need to be ready for any situation, and you need to be ready to be, just to use your example again, Basil, in fourth quarter mode kind of all the time. You need to be ready in cricket to accelerate from nothing up to 100%, up to fourth quarter mode, sometimes from one ball to the next, especially if it's a longer form game, where sometimes things don't happen for 10, 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour at a time. And you need to be able to make sure that your body is going to respond the moment that you have to make a 30-yard run to take a catch, right? So I think that the purpose of these fitness tests is to make sure that if that situation comes, that even Shimron Hetmeyer will be able to make that run and make that catch in that time. Do I think that possibly maybe some of these fitness tests have gone a bit far, and maybe there's certainly some athletes that they don't make do these fitness tests? How long did Chris Gale play? His T20 cricket. Do you think he is passing the same fitness tests that Shimron Hetmeyer has had to pass? I don't know. I'll get all the comments in for that. I'm here to start the fires tonight. But I think that being ready to accelerate, being ready to participate fully in the game at the drop of a hat is something that is unique in a lot of ways to cricket, and being sure that you're fully fit the moment you step on the field so that you can participate whenever that moment happens is really important.
Okay, great. Vicky, what do you think? Oh, go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
I want to talk on this because this has been something I've spoken on a lot, because I think there is and specific to the West Indies, I can even talk about other cricket nations. People are conflating two things. The West Indies has a fitness standard they want their players to meet to be eligible for selection. And I will say this, their fitness standards are actually low, right? That 40 on a yo-yo test is low, right? So people are complaining about the 40. That just goes to show you how poor our fitness standards are in West Indies cricket, right? That's one. they're conflating the issue with the policy, which I have an issue with. I do not believe, and they have never explained it. I have asked the question all the way to the CEO. I would like to hear the medical committee who gives these exemptions and the sports science people to come before the press and explain to the public what is the criteria that they determine that a player can get an exemption. And second, what does that exemption mean? Does that player get any testing or so on? Because I have a serious problem where all of us have to go onto the cricket field to perform the same tasks. My levels of fitness are tested, but because somebody got some exemption, they're not tested, but they have to play. They have to do the same task as I on the field. I got a serious problem with that. I understand, yes, where, you know, if you're older, your levels of fitness might be less, etc. Because in the fitness industry, we got all these tests that we do. And then when we look at the scores, you'll say someone between 25 and 29, this is what they're expected, 35 to blah, and so on and so forth. I've used them a lot with clients to show you, see, look, you're doing like a 30, you're coming in like a 35 to 39 year for motivation. But in elite sport, all of the players have to meet those demands. You can't give exemptions. You can probably, an older player, you wouldn't push them as hard in practice because you want all of their energy for the game because they've played so much. You don't want them to be wearing out in practice. It's just like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in his later years with the Lakers. Riley wasn't pushing Jabbar hard in practices. He wanted Jabbar ready for the game, right? So that is where people are conflating. And they're also conflating if a player does not meet the fitness standards, set players unfit. No, they're not unfit. They just did not meet that standard. I'll just give one quick example of what I mean, and using Hetmeyer. My dad, when he was in his early 40s, after he retired, still playing Case Cup. And he was making more runs than anybody that playing for Guyana. He was still making more runs than guys who were still playing. And I remember once he made a double century. And when he came home, myself and my brother got our first introduction to being massage therapists because we had to rub his entire body down with Radium B. Those of us from the Guyana and the Caribbean know what Radium B is, right? Shortly after then, I think it was the next season, we walking into board, the Guyana is playing, the president of the board is walking out, and he said, Basil, man, why you don't come back? Because these young guys don't fit the thing. He said, come. Who? So as we continue walking, he turned, he said, he must be think my playing Case Cup is not like Shell Shield. My fitness levels to go in that hot sun? No way. And the intensity of the game is totally different, right? So what people got to understand, you see teams around the world now, they put these monitors on their players while they're playing. So the conditioning people are gathering data, how much miles or kilometers we in America, so we say miles, but outside they say kilometers. How many kilometers a guy is running on a day's play? So they see how much energy expenditure, so they get a better understanding of what levels of fitness is necessary, right? So Hetmeyer, for example, you want to, in cricket, for example, you want that player to be able to recover over and over and over and over and over. And that's what the yo-yo test, for example, is. It tests the player's ability to recover, right? So it is a good benchmark to look at in terms that you can predict how well that player will be able to perform at a high level over a long period.
Okay, thank you so much, Basil. Vicky, at the New York, club level, how do you see fitness impacting, the game and a team's performance over the years?
I think Butch made so many great points there, and it's the same thing at the grassroots level. I would say the club level that we have here. It's recovery, right? So we play games on Saturday and Sunday, And it's being able to push on to making a 30 or a 50 or a 70 and 90. When you burn out, you lose your shape, you lose your balance. And that's a big thing in any sports, whether you're a batsman or a bowler, whether you come back for that last spell or whether, for pace bowlers especially, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're bowling that last spell. That's why Dale Steyn was so good, because he would bowl that last spell the same pace that he bowled the first spell in a day's play, right? And that's why everyone commended his fitness so much. The Hatimaya issue, I have to talk about it. I think what Butch said it the best. It's the inconsistency at which the West Indies health fitness standards are being implemented. With our cupboard being so bare, I don't know if that's the only criteria we could use for a selection. I feel like we need to have a common sense approach to this. However, I do feel Hetkemeyer has to blame himself a little bit, because if you're a professional athlete and you're a centrally contracted player, you have one job: to play cricket. And these are not surprise tests, right? 6 months, a year ahead of time that this is what you need to pass. I see the fitness test like a homework, okay? You're a student and you do your homework. It doesn't make you the smartest student in the class, but it shows your dedication to whatever you're doing, right? And passing that fitness test means you're doing your homework to go and do other things.
Okay. Brian, going on Vicky's point and accepting what Basil would have said, that there are obvious inconsistencies on the side of the West Indies cricket board. But like Vicky said, a test is like homework. And as a professional athlete, you know that, this should be done. How do you think we in the West Indies can begin to really communicate this to players to convince them that, look, regardless of the inconsistencies, the glaring inconsistencies that you see, we want you to get this right. How can that be best communicated?
I think that so I'll say up front, for those that are maybe listening and not watching, I'm the white American guy on the show, so I wouldn't know specifically a lot of the cultural ins and outs of what it is to grow up in sports in the West Indies and what the sort of fitness culture is like there. But when I look at the history of sports in the Caribbean, I think of amazing athletics, runners, especially from Jamaica, and I think of footballers. I think of the famous Reggae Boys and the other famous football teams from around the region. And you have to be very fit to play a full 90 minutes of football, and you have to be very fit to consistent, and you have to have incredible strength and conditioning trainers to be able to produce some of the best sprinters in the world over and over and over again. So I wonder what it is maybe about the culture of cricket in this generation and the generations previous of what does fitness mean to cricket, because there are these other sports where fitness clearly, especially in athletics, is the only thing you need to worry about, and in football you really have to make sure you can be out there running around for 90 minutes. So I wonder what it is about cricket in the sort of batting and bowling nature. Maybe we didn't start working on fielding till much more recently than we should have, that fitness has maybe gone off the radar as a thing you really need to play cricket. We see that at the club level. We know that guys at the club level can rock up no matter what age they are and be a lot less fit than they were a few years earlier. And they can whack the ball out of the park. Sometimes we only have 55, 60-yard boundaries, and they can still whack the ball out of the park with a big bat. So I think people get away with not always being as fit as other athletes in cricket. And I think there's a tradition of that. Look at David Boone. Look at W.G. Grace, all the way back to the beginning of cricket, the big fat man, the doctor, who would just fix games for himself and was an amateur but made money off of every game that he played. Being sort of unfit in cricket has been sexy at times throughout its history. And so I wonder, as cricket becomes more of a sport for elite athletes as it is today, how fitness will find its way in. I think it's important that it is happening, and we see that some places have more advantage because they have some fitter players.
But Brian, we see it with the feeling already, right? You can see it in front of your eyes, right? If you follow cricket in the early 90s and you follow cricket now, the catches that these guys are taking, it's because they're fitter. They're jumping, they're covering way more ground than the boundary. Yeah. And just to go back to club cricket, right? And Butch knows this well. You go show up in July to play a game, You're gonna be like, you know what? I think we're gonna sun these guys out today because it's hot. We're gonna play 40 of a game. We're gonna play good for that first 25, 30 overs. And you know that last 10 overs when they're getting tired, when that bowler's coming back for that last 10, we're gonna cash in because we're fitter, and that's where we're gonna win the game. That's where the extra 20 runs come in, and that's where fitness comes in to cricket.
Yeah, Brian, just to let you know, the West Indies in the late 70s into the 80s set the standard of fitness in the cricket world with the Clive Lloyd teams that they brought in a guy when they went to Packer named Dennis Waite.
Mm-hmm.
And fitness was, the West Indies teams just used to intimidate teams when they warmed up prior to the start of the game with all the things that they were doing. I mean, and then what has happened is that as those guys came off the scene and Waite left the scene, the thing about fitness is that we got to the point where you got South Asian teams looking better than us in the field, that our fitness standards had dropped so low. I'll give an example of what Vicky's talking about. I went with the U.S. team to the World Cup on the 19 in 2006 as the physio. And because in club cricket, we play 40 overs, but usually if you play a good 25, that's good enough to win the game. You're not going to have, no team usually plays hard through 40 overs. And what happened to our guys when we were at the World Cup? They would compete with the other teams for about 25, 30 overs, and then they faded away because their fitness levels, their focus and all those things went away because they were not accustomed for that intensity for 50 overs, 100 overs in Youth World Cup. So that's where a fitness culture in cricket fell by the wayside. To answer your question, Nancy, my view is to do like the Australians. Australia, I knew because a couple of years ago when Australians came here, they were doing testing with our cricketers at combines. I was at a couple of the combines, and one of them here in New Jersey, I was the timekeeper with everybody. The guys had to run a 2K. And the Australian coach that came in was standing next to me, and he said to me, in Australia, if you can't run the 2K in 7 minutes, 30 seconds or less, you can't play state cricket, which means at the state level, everybody is eligible to play for Australia. They're not waiting to test you when you get to the Australian team. So you can't play no cricket if you're not at that level. And I think in the West Indies, that's why we have to filter this down to the lower levels and inculcate it from under 15s all the way up, the importance. You start fitness testing these guys all the way at that age because the kids around the world, they're doing the same thing. Their contemporaries are doing all those different tests at the young ages that we waiting to do when a guy gets to the first class or international level. So we have to reinvigorate that fitness culture all the way down to the bottom of our cricket. Because otherwise, I mean, like Vicky said, the cupboard is bare. I hate that the selectors, every time they got to sit down and pick a team, they give them a paper. These are the players that are eligible. So say I was selected looking at a guy in the first class and he liked the guy. And then when it's time to select, so what about John Jones? Sorry, man, John Jones didn't meet the fitness standard, so he's not eligible for selection. But if they had it where you couldn't play at the regional level, they don't even have to get the paper no more. That's my opinion on this whole fitness thing with us.
I wonder how much more Australia is spoiled for choice, in that way, just sort of volume of cricketers and things, that they have those standards because they've had these fitness standards for a lot of years, yes. men and women and across the game. We know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too with us in the West Indies. Why, people, because we have not had those standards, and then the standards come into play and people are complaining, but you got to start somewhere, right? And that is why you have to you start there, but they got to go down further down the chain, to get this fitness thing in more. But again, this exemption thing, I got problems with it. They need to explain this clearly to the cricketing public.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. We'll definitely be, continue in future broadcasts to look at this issue because it's an overriding issue. It's going to be with us for a long time. And thank you so much for your insights, Basil,
Hmm.
Brian, and Vicky. We will be back in just about 15 seconds. All right. Well, we're about to, it's the Mother's Day weekend, and we're about to start the next, the 2022 New York season. Vicky, tell us what we can expect, and then we'll go to Brian for 2022.
So I'll plug the New York National Cricket League, which Liberty Sports Club take part in. But there are other leagues as well. Everyone is trying to develop cricket as much as they can. There's the Saturday competition and the Sunday competition there. 30 overs on Saturday, 40 overs on Sunday. There's a Premier Division on Sunday as well as a B Division. What you're gonna have a lot of young, fit cricketers ready to play cricket. I've looked at the rosters. I see a few former West Indian players, some former Bangladeshi players, and players from other nations coming in to try to see who are the best. I know the organizers of the New York National Cricket League is putting up some prizes. I think it's $15,000 on Sunday for the A division, 7,500 for the B division. I can't remember the Saturday competition, but it might be around $10,000 as well, or around that for the winners. So now that we have something up for grabs, I know the guys are taking it very serious and they're coming out to play the cricket very hard. With social media and videos going worldwide, guys no longer want to show up at the park and disgrace themselves. So they're going to the gym, talking about this Happy Meyer issue, trying to get fit and trying to be the best they can be.
All right, all right. Brian, for the folks very much like you with your kind of background, can you tell them where you give them an idea where they can see cricket and why it would be nice for them to come out and watch some cricket in the New York area?
Sure. I mean, once we get a little bit deeper into spring and summer, cricketing is happening every Saturday and Sunday in about 17 different locations around the city. Vicky mentioned the New York National Cricket League. I'm a big part of that as well. I spend a lot of my Sundays, hopefully starting in 2 days, as long as it doesn't rain through the whole weekend. I'll be out on Randall's Island, which is the beautiful park full of sports fields just between Manhattan and Queens, just over the RFK bridge. So I'm there quite a bit. I've seen Vicky there a few times. His team has come out to play with us out there. I love Randall's Island. The reason they send me there quite often is because I live in Manhattan, and to stick with our fitness topic earlier, because it's kind of hard to just stand up straight in one position for 10 hours in the day. I love to ride my bike as often as I can out to the grounds. And so I get my workout and I get my stretching in the morning, taking a bike out to the ground. So yeah, if it's a beautiful Sunday out in New York, come join me out on Randall's Island. There's also a lot of fields out in the JFK area, out at Baisley Pond and the Cage, out at Idlewild Park, and then out in Brooklyn, out at Marine Park. The Metro League plays there. The American League is playing there. There are 3 separate leagues that only cater to New York Bangladeshis. So those 3 leagues all happen simultaneously throughout the summer. There's the Commonwealth Cricket League, which is the largest cricket league in the country with more than 100 teams still, run by our local USA cricket affiliate, Ajit Bhaskar. I'm part of that sometimes. So there's a lot of cricket going on. Please do keep track of it through our social medias. I'm on Twitter, Brian Arcane on Twitter. I tweet a lot about the games I go out to. Sometimes if you come out to Randall's Island on the right Sunday, you could see me and Steve Buckner standing at opposite ends of the field, umpiring a game together, because me and Steve take the bus in together onto Randall's Island and sometimes have a beautiful Sunday out there.
I wanted to just say something to Nancy.
Yeah.
One of the things we refer to cricketers, we used to say cricketers. We refer to them as cricket athletes now because they're athletes. They have to train like elite athletes now. That's why, as Vicky talked about the fielding, the things you see guys doing on the field now is because of how they train, And in the case of Hetmeyer, this kid is a tremendous athlete. This guy used to, in school, he ran track, the 100 to 200. Every sport he came good. And he used to be meeting those fitness standards with flying colors. And I don't know what has happened, but he needs to focus. I mean, if he wants to play for the West Indies, that is, another question that, another debate. But and he's admitted it because he was on the Caribbean cricket podcast, and he said it's all on him why he has not been up to thing with his fitness. And it's a problem in Guyana because more than at least half the Guyana team didn't meet the standards. Wow. And it's been an ongoing problem. And some of the Guyanese cricketers that you'd hear Guyanese quarreling for to be on the West Indies team, several of them, the main reason is because they didn't meet the fitness standards, so they're not even eligible for selection.
Well, John, good night and welcome. We're about to close off, but
Good
evening.
but you can give us your little 2 cents on the fitness issue.
My apologies. My apologies. I got stuck at Kennedy. I got stuck at Kennedy Airport. But just to pick up what Basil said, he's absolutely right. Athletes prior to now or some couple of decades ago were focused on just raw talent. Training and going to the gym was a supplemental thing where, that complemented. But now it's an integral part of the whole exercise, the whole process of being a successful athlete. And Basil would know this more so because he's done a lot in that particular area. Where to make the complete athlete, it's not just about him having the raw skills and the talent. It's how to use those skills and the talent, but also to how to avoid injury, because preventative is what the key word here. Mm-hmm. Some athletes get a pull hamstring and then they deal with it, but you can prevent a hamstring if you deal with it before you pull the hamstring muscle. And so athletes have to recondition their mindset as to how they go about their particular craft. And so if that was the trend of the conversation, I'm totally on board with that. That's the way it should be.
That was the trend.
Okay. My close out on this whole fitness thing is I'll compare 2 cell phones, okay? You have a cell phone, the basic function is to make a call. 2 phones can make a call, okay. But then your phone might have a better app. That's added value. Now, same thing with the fitness. You have 2 cricketers, but the one who's better fit has a better added value. And I hope that clarifies the point on why you need fitness, high fitness.
All right. All right. I'll close off with a question from one of our viewers. Basil, you were talking about the exemptions. You looked at the issue of Chris Gayle and so on, right? And one of our viewers asked the question, why are fitness exemptions granted?
That's a good question. The West Indies, I mean, Jimmy Adams came on and gave an explanation, about age, injury history, training history, etc. I actually was more confused because I don't want to hear about what these exemptions are. I want to understand, how do you go about granting these exemptions, right? What is the criteria for one to get an exemption? Because that's where that's going to open the whole can of worms. Because as I said earlier, this guy got to go on the field to play. And this other thing where they say about, if a guy had a knee injury or something, you're doing the yo-yo test because it's running and so on. Well, golly, on the cricket field, you got to be running, right? You got to be running up and down the singles, chasing after the ball in the outfield, etc., etc. And as we would say from a strength and conditioning perspective, we actually want guys to train harder when they training than when they would be on the field. So when they play the game, they can get through the game because the demands we put on them in training is at a higher level than what they're going to deal with on the field of play. So if a guy can't even do the damn tests, how is he playing? I got serious problems with that.
I think part of the problem is athletes take a lot for granted. They don't understand the human your whole physiological being, right? How your system interact. The more you understand that, the more you can understand how your body reacts, negatively or positively. But you got to understand the physiology of yourself or of a being to know which muscles are affected by when you do this or when you do that. That's the whole mindset that it has to be a change in approach to not only coaching and strength and conditioning coaches, but before you go there and pick up a bat and ball, understand when you raise your hand like this, which muscles are you using when you raise your hand like this? If you do that, then you could relate to why this muscle is important to this throwing arm. And that's why you would be able to understand and relate to why, when you go a strength and conditioning coach, have you working on lats, to why you're building this upper muscle. I'm not going to be a boxer. Why you got to do all of this and that? No, it's your body, how your body functions, right? You go into a car, you start the engine on, and you drive off. You don't know it. You don't care about carburetor and this and the piston doing this and all that stuff. That works. Well, no, this is you are the car, you are the body, you driving this car. You better know where the carburetor is and where the spark plugs are. If not, you break down, you can't fix it.
Yeah, nutrition and lifestyle recovery. Because young athletes across sport, they think they're invincible, and you have to school them about recovery. I mean, that is just as important as your actual training. Because if you don't recover, you're going to break down. So I mean, one of the things whenever I deal with young athletes, I talk to them about recovery, talk to them about lifestyle, nutrition, because it's a whole human being that has to perform. And if all these components that are required for you to be successful, which would include your talent and skills, but these are the things that complement or at the foundation to afford you to be able to demonstrate your skills long and over a period of time continuously. Because, as Vicky said, the close, in a test match in the last session of the day, and the captain throw the ball to you and say, "Here, give me 4 good overs before close of play. Let's see what we could do," and you can't do it. That's a detriment to your team.
All right. I think that's a good note to close this evening's conversation on. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on board. All right. We look forward for more interesting conversations in the weeks to come. We'll continue to look at a variety of issues affecting the game. We want to look at the fans and how we can bring fans to the game, etc. All right. So please be on the lookout. Follow Brian, follow Vicky online, follow Basil, follow John, and you'll get some notes on where cricket is playing and so on. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank our viewers for joining us this evening, and this has been a Bits and Pieces Cricket Podcast. Thank you, and we're out.
All right.